It rarely announces itself in a dramatic way. There is no single moment where everything collapses or falls apart. Instead, it arrives quietly, almost politely, slipping into your awareness on an ordinary day when you are not expecting it. You wake up, reach for your phone, and begin scrolling without thinking much about it. Someone your age is celebrating something significant: a promotion, a wedding, a new house, a milestone that feels complete and adult in a way you cannot quite explain. You pause for a second, then keep scrolling. Another post appears. Then another. Different people, same feeling. And suddenly there is a tightness in your chest that does not have a clear name. You are not angry. You are not jealous in the way people usually mean it. You are happy for them, at least on the surface. But beneath that reaction, something else is happening. A quiet discomfort settles in. A sense that time is moving forward and you are somehow standing still. A feeling that you did not fail exactly, but you did not arrive either. What makes this feeling so confusing is that nothing obvious is wrong. Your life is functioning. You show up. You do what you are supposed to do. You laugh at the right moments and tell people you are working on things. From the outside, there is no visible crisis. But internally, there is a low, persistent question that keeps repeating itself, no matter how much you try to ignore it. How did I end up here, and why does it feel like everyone else knows something I do not? This is what it feels like to believe you are behind in life. Not broken, not incapable, not failing in a dramatic sense. Just late, as if you missed an invisible turn somewhere along the way. And the most unsettling part is that there is no clear evidence you can point to, no single mistake you can correct. There is only a growing internal pressure, a quiet panic that whispers that life is moving on without you, and you are running out of time to catch up. The reason this feeling is so powerful is not because something is actually wrong with your life. It is because, somewhere along the way, you absorbed an invisible timeline without realizing it. A quiet set of expectations about where you should be by a certain age and what your life should look like by now. These timelines do not usually come from one place. They form slowly, through comments from family, comparisons with friends, movies and stories you grew up watching, and especially the constant exposure to other people's lives online. Over time, these messages blend together and start to feel like rules instead of opinions. By this age, you should have stability. By that age, you should have clarity. By now, you should be settled. The problem is that no one ever sits you down and asks whether you actually chose this timeline for yourself. It just becomes the background standard you measure your life against. And once that happens, your mind stops looking at your life with curiosity. It starts looking at it with judgment. Instead of noticing what you have learned, what you have survived, or how far you have come, your attention locks onto something else entirely. You begin to focus on what is missing. You notice the gaps. You measure yourself not by progress, but by distance from where you think you should already be. This is why feeling behind can exist even when your life is objectively moving forward. You might be working, improving, or figuring things out, but none of it feels like it counts. The timeline in your head is always ahead of you, and every step you take feels too small compared to the picture you are holding onto. Over time, this changes the way you see yourself. You stop asking, "Am I growing in the right direction for me?" and start asking, "Why am I not where I'm supposed to be yet?" And once that question takes over, it becomes very hard to see your life clearly, because you are no longer looking at where you are. You are only looking at where you believe you failed to arrive. Once that invisible timeline settles in your mind, comparison becomes almost automatic. You are no longer just living your life. You are constantly measuring it against a version of yourself that exists mostly in imagination. The person you thought you would be by now. The life you assumed would already be in place. Psychologists describe this gap as temporal self-discrepancy. In simple terms, it is the distance between who you are today and who you expected to be at this point in your life. And the larger that gap feels, the heavier it becomes to carry. Every day starts to feel like proof that you are falling further behind, even when that is not actually true. This is where a quiet form of shame begins to grow. It is not loud or dramatic. It does not announce itself as self-hate. It shows up in smaller ways. You hesitate when people ask what you are doing with your life. You downplay your efforts because they do not sound impressive enough. You start assuming that if people really knew where you were, they would be disappointed. Over time, this comparison distorts how you see yourself. You stop viewing your life as something that is still unfolding and start labeling yourself instead. You begin to see yourself as slow, behind, or somehow less capable than others. Not because there is real evidence for it, but because the imagined version of you feels so much further ahead. Social media intensifies this problem in a way the human mind was never designed to handle. Your brain is comparing your private, unfinished life to hundreds of public highlight reels every day. You see results without the struggle, confidence without the doubt, and success without the years of uncertainty that came before it. Your mind does not register this as selective information. It registers it as reality. And when that kind of comparison becomes constant, it creates a sense that everyone else is moving forward with ease while you are struggling just to keep up. The truth is, most people are uncertain in ways you cannot see. But when comparison happens at this scale, your mind fills in the gaps with the same conclusion again and again. Everyone else is ahead, and I am the one falling behind. When the mind starts to believe that it is falling behind, it does not just affect how you think. It affects how your brain and body respond to everyday life. The feeling creates a constant, low-level sense of pressure in the background. Not full panic, not fear you can easily name, but a steady tension that never fully turns off. Psychologically, your brain begins to interpret time as a threat. It feels like something important is slipping away, and that belief quietly keeps your nervous system on edge. You might notice that you feel anxious without a clear reason, or restless even when nothing urgent is happening. This is not because you are weak or overreacting. It is because your brain thinks it needs to stay alert in order to catch up. Over time, this pressure starts to interfere with decision-making. Choices that used to feel simple begin to feel heavy. Trying something new feels risky because it might confirm your fear of being too late. Committing to one path feels dangerous because you worry it could be the wrong one and waste even more time. Even resting can start to feel uncomfortable, as if you have not earned the right to slow down yet. Creativity also suffers under this kind of mental strain. When your brain is focused on urgency, it becomes harder to think openly or explore possibilities. Everything starts to feel like it has to fix your life instead of simply move it forward. And when every action feels like it carries that kind of weight, it becomes easier to freeze than to begin. From the outside, none of this is obvious. You may still appear calm, capable, and functional. You still go to work, have conversations, and meet expectations. But internally, you are tired in a way that is difficult to explain. You are exhausted not just from what you are doing, but from what you are constantly thinking about. This is why so many people who feel behind are tired even when their lives do not look overwhelming. They are carrying the mental load of self-monitoring, second-guessing, and quietly worrying about time. The body stays in motion, but the mind never fully rests. And over time, that hidden tension becomes one of the heaviest parts of feeling behind. What often gets overlooked in conversations about being behind is that slow progress is not always a sign of weakness or lack of ability. In many cases, it is a sign that someone is trying to build a life that actually fits them, rather than rushing into one that looks good from the outside but feels wrong on the inside. There is an important difference between delayed ability and delayed alignment. Delayed ability means you cannot move forward because you lack the skills or capacity. Delayed alignment means you are moving carefully because you are trying to make choices that make sense for who you are, not just who you are expected to be. From the outside, both can look the same, but internally they are very different experiences. People who feel behind are often more reflective than they realize. They question paths instead of blindly following them. They think deeply before committing to long-term decisions. They hesitate not because they are incapable, but because they want to avoid waking up one day in a life that feels empty or forced. That kind of caution rarely gets praised, but it protects you in ways speed cannot. A lot of this work happens quietly and without visible result. Emotional growth does not come with announcements. Learning boundaries, unlearning old patterns, and developing self-awareness do not show up on resumes or social media. But these changes shape the direction of your life just as much as any early achievement, sometimes even more. Many people who feel behind spent earlier parts of their lives simply trying to survive. They were dealing with pressure, instability, self-doubt, or environments that did not support growth. While others were building achievements, they were building resilience. While others were collecting milestones, they were learning how to stay afloat. That work counts, even if it is invisible. The problem is that society rarely recognizes unseen progress. There is no applause for healing, no reward for choosing alignment over urgency, and no clear marker that tells you when inner work is complete. So it can feel like nothing is happening, even when something important is taking place beneath the surface. And without realizing it, you may already be building a foundation that will support you in ways speed never could. As the feeling of being behind grows, it rarely stays confined to your thoughts. It begins to affect how you show up around other people. Conversations that once felt easy can start to feel uncomfortable, especially when they revolve around milestones you have not reached yet or paths you are unsure about. You may notice yourself pulling back socially, not because you dislike people, but because explaining your life feels exhausting. Simple questions like, "What are you up to these days?" or "So, what's next for you?" suddenly carry more weight than they should. You know there is no wrong answer, yet your mind treats the question like a test you are about to fail. This creates a subtle split inside. On the outside, you try to appear calm, stable, and fine. You smile, listen, and show support for others' achievements. On the inside, you are often unsure, still figuring things out, and quietly worried about how your life looks in comparison. Maintaining that gap between how you feel and how you present yourself takes energy, more than most people realize. Over time, this tension can affect your confidence in social settings. You may start second-guessing yourself, speaking less, or avoiding certain gatherings altogether. Not because you are antisocial, but because being seen while unfinished feels risky. It can feel safer to stay quiet than to feel exposed. Relationships can also become complicated in this space. You might feel out of sync with friends who seem more settled, even when there is no resentment between you. The distance is not always emotional. Sometimes it is simply the feeling that you are living in different chapters of life. And when that happens, the sense of being behind can feel even stronger, because it no longer lives only in your thoughts. It starts to shape how connected you feel to the people around you. From the outside, it can sometimes look like people who feel behind lack motivation. In reality, the opposite is often true. There is usually a lot of pressure attached to every decision they try to make. When every choice feels like it has to fix your life, it becomes very hard to know where to start. This is where urgency-driven behavior begins to take over. Decisions stop being guided by clarity and start being driven by fear. You feel rushed to choose something, anything, just so you are no longer standing still. But at the same time, the fear of choosing wrong becomes overwhelming. What if this path wastes more time? What if it confirms that you are already too late? That tension pulls you in two directions at once. Procrastination often grows in this space, not because you do not care, but because you care too much. Starting feels heavy because the stakes feel unrealistically high. So you delay. You distract yourself. You tell yourself you will begin when you feel more ready or more confident. What looks like avoidance on the outside is often self-protection on the inside. As this pattern continues, self-trust begins to erode. If you believe you are behind because of past choices, it becomes harder to trust your judgment now. You question every decision. You look for reassurance from others. You compare again. You hesitate. Over time, even small choices can feel exhausting because you are constantly second-guessing yourself. The hardest part is that this cycle reinforces itself. The more you delay, the more behind you feel. The more behind you feel, the more pressure you put on yourself to choose perfectly. And the more pressure there is, the harder it becomes to move at all. What you actually need in this moment is not more urgency, but less fear. Because motivation does not disappear when you feel behind. It gets buried under the weight of expectation. At some point, the idea of catching up starts to feel like the solution. If you could just move faster, make the right choices quickly, or hit a few major milestones, you believe the pressure would finally ease. But this idea is built on a misunderstanding of how life actually works. Society quietly teaches that speed equals success. The faster you achieve, the more competent you are assumed to be. The earlier you arrive, the more valuable your progress seems. But real life is not that simple. Moving quickly does not always mean moving in the right direction, and slowing down does not automatically mean you are falling behind. For many people, feeling behind has less to do with actual progress and more to do with a mismatch between their inner growth and the timelines they are comparing themselves to. You may be changing, learning, and clarifying what matters to you, while the timeline in your head is still measuring success in outdated or borrowed ways. That mismatch creates tension, even when your life is evolving. The danger comes from borrowing definitions of success that were never designed for you. When you chase goals simply because others value them, you can move very fast and still feel empty. You can reach milestones and still feel lost. And when those borrowed goals do not motivate you, you assume something is wrong with you instead of questioning the goal itself. Catching up, in the way people often imagine it, is an illusion. There is no universal pace that proves your worth, and there is no shared finish line where everyone finally feels complete. The pressure to catch up does not disappear when you move faster. It disappears when you stop measuring your life by standards that do not reflect who you are becoming. One of the most helpful shifts people make when the feeling of being behind starts to loosen is changing how they think about time itself. Instead of seeing life as one straight line that everyone is supposed to follow at the same pace, they begin to see it as something more flexible and human. Life moves in seasons. There are times when you are building and moving forward with momentum. There are times when you are healing from things that slowed you down or changed you. There are seasons for experimenting, trying paths that may or may not last, and seasons for reflecting, where clarity matters more than speed. None of these phases are wasted, even if they do not look productive from the outside. When you see life this way, the pressure to always be advancing begins to soften. You realize that moving slowly does not mean you are stuck. It can mean you are aligning. You can take careful steps and still be headed in the right direction. Pace and purpose are not the same thing, even though society often treats them as if they are. This is why dramatic overhauls rarely bring lasting peace. Trying to fix everything at once usually comes from panic, not understanding. Your mind and nervous system respond better to manageable steps that feel safe and realistic. Small, consistent actions taken with clarity are more powerful than rushed decisions made out of fear. When people allow themselves to move in rhythm with their actual season, something changes internally. The urgency eases. Choices feel lighter. Progress becomes something you can feel instead of something you are constantly chasing. And slowly, the idea of being behind starts to lose its grip, not because life suddenly speeds up, but because you are no longer fighting its natural pace. As the pressure begins to ease, one of the most important realizations starts to take shape. Feeling behind is not who you are. It is a temporary perspective shaped by expectations, comparison, and timing. It feels permanent when you are inside it, but it is not an identity you are meant to carry forever. This is where self-compassion becomes more than a comforting idea. It becomes a practical skill. Instead of asking yourself, "Why am I behind?" you begin to ask a different question. "What am I learning right now?" That shift may seem small, but it changes how you relate to your own life. It turns judgment into curiosity and pressure into understanding. When you approach your situation this way, you stop seeing every delay as a failure. You start noticing patterns, lessons, and signals that were easy to miss before. You recognize what drains you, what matters to you, and what kind of life actually feels sustainable. These insights do not arrive quickly, but they shape your choices in a deeper way. Intentionality starts to matter more than speed. You become less interested in rushing toward milestones just to prove something and more focused on making choices that align with your values. Depth begins to replace urgency. You realize that arriving early at a life that does not fit you is not a win, even if it looks impressive from the outside. Many people who once felt behind eventually discover that they were not late at all. They were preparing. They were becoming more aware, more grounded, and more honest about what they wanted. And that kind of preparation cannot be rushed without losing its meaning. When you move with intention instead of panic, progress may look slower, but it feels steadier and more real. By the time you reach this point, it becomes clear that feeling behind is not a punishment. In fact, the delays you once feared often carry hidden benefit. They give you time to grow, to reflect, and to understand yourself in ways that rushing could never allow. What once felt like lost time becomes a teacher, offering lessons that shape how you move forward. The experiences you went through, the waiting, the uncertainty, the times you hesitated, help you develop discernment. You begin to notice the difference between what truly matters and what only looks important from the outside. The slow periods give you perspective, and they prepare you to make decisions with more clarity and confidence than you could have if everything had happened quickly. Feeling behind, uncomfortable as it is, becomes an invitation rather than a judgment. It is an opportunity to align your actions with your values, to step forward intentionally instead of automatically, and to create a life that feels real instead of rehearsed. Those who embrace this perspective often find that the delays they feared were exactly what they needed to develop depth, resilience, and a truer sense of direction. In the end, life is not about arriving first. It is about showing up fully, learning deeply, and moving with awareness. Being behind does not mean missing life. It means having the chance to meet it more honestly, more intentionally, and with a clearer understanding of what matters most. And that, ultimately, is where true progress begins.